Danger Dolan. Laughingman17 asks, "Hey DD, I'm wondering what your take on 5-man dungeons is. I know you've touched on them a few times in previous videos, but do you think in the upcoming expansion Blizzard will attempt to make them relevant again? As of now, they are really only good for farming justice points to get heirlooms. In Burning Crusade and especially Wrath, Blizzard added new dungeons throughout the expansion that gave better gear. I felt this added a type of freshness to the game." And he is quite right, we've been getting progressively less 5-man dungeons as we go. In Vanilla we got 20, in BC we got 16, Wrath 16 again, Cataclysm 14 dungeons, although players kind of accepted this because of how much work they put into the old world content. We didn't really expect them to have a lot of dungeons and raids. But then they dropped the ball in Mr. Pandaria with a measly 9 dungeons. Of course, this does not count scenarios, which are a little bit different, but they aim for the same audience. Now, because Blizzard's raid and dungeon design teams are essentially the same, you can't have one without the other. For instance, Wrath's Call of the Crusade patch brought only one small raid and one small dungeon to the table, right? But because of this, it let them focus on designing a massive sprawling ICC raid and 3 additional heroic dungeons for their next patch. So most of the time, if something seems lacking in the game, it's because they're busy working on something else, and thus they have to take time and manpower away from this other thing. Now, in the last few years, Blizzard have started something I like to refer to as massive pendulum swings. Negative feedback from overly easy dungeons in Wrath of the Lich King had them design super difficult dungeons at the start of Cataclysm. And then the overwhelmingly negative response from that caused all future dungeons to become zergable jokes, hence Pandaria ones. The tabard rep system from Cataclysm caused a decrease in world immersion, so they locked everything behind daily quests, and then an overwhelmingly negative response caused the pendulum to swing to the Timeless Isle, where we got pretty much no dailies. Blizzard is getting notorious for this, and the cycle repeats here. They saw the backlash from Firelands and the Hour of Twilight, so they dumped all their resources into designing overly long raids, which meant 5-mans were no longer getting designed. People don't like that. So, assuming history repeats itself, we'll see a massive pendulum swing towards too many 5-mans next expansion, and then people will complain that there aren't enough bosses in raids again, but let's hope it doesn't come to that. And at least community manager Draztil confirms here that they will once again appear in future. They do like 5-mans, they just didn't really have enough time to do them this expansion that well. Alright, at Blizzcon, we better hear about how they plan to reintroduce and differentiate dungeon difficulties. Right now, all we have is LFG level heroics, challenge mode timed runs, but that's not enough. Like raids, we need at least 3 levels of difficulty, the matchmaking easy ones, the flex style puggables on the level of Cataclysm, and finally the super challenging raid difficulty 5-mans. I've never really understood why they put all this time into designing these mechanics for the dungeon boss fights and then make them extremely easy. Like, why even put boss fights in if you're just gonna ignore their mechanics? Why would you make timed runs if all the difficulty just revolves around not dying from trash? One of the main reasons that LFR is such a problem is because there's no alternative for endgame, so everyone just needs raids tuned down to their level. Whereas in the old BC days, dungeons were your endgame if you couldn't get into raids. This expansion, we got no new dungeons, and it's not acceptable. Heroic scenarios work as filler, but we do dungeons for the boss fights and the mechanics. We don't want to clear a bunch of trash in 15 minutes. And then when you overuse raids in 4 difficulties, it gets old. That's why dungeons are so appealing. They only require 5 people, there's less confusion, mistakes are easier to identify and resolve because there aren't 10 or 25 people running around. If we use raids as a metaphor for some huge sweeping party with 800 million people there, and a dungeon run is a quiet night of drinks with your friends, then the dungeons of today, it would be like sitting in a blank room with strangers staring at each other, wondering why they are even there. Now, Blizzard are quite aware of these issues. They know challenge mode timed runs are for a very niche audience, and Ghostcrawler would like to introduce hard mode 5-mans back into the game that you can pug, so do expect some massive changes coming next expansion, and a lot more 5-mans. I just pray that they do not do a massive pendulum swing away from raids and then put all of their eggs into the dungeon basket. That would be awful. That's it for this chat box. If you would like to see me cover a gameplay topic really quick, leave a comment below. Have a good one.